I love the positioning of emotional intelligence as a skill. But before we talk about the skill, I would love to hear how you define emotional intelligence.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to back you up a little bit and say it's a model with skills in it.
Okay.
Okay.
So even more blocks that you can build.
Yeah. And I'm going to break that up. Now, out there in emotional intelligence land, there are many different emotional intelligence assessments. There's like 5 different variations of them, okay? And they all kind of define the building blocks of emotional intelligence a little differently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the 4 main components of emotional intelligence. Okay. It's a little easier to remember 4 than the 25 or 36 different skills.
Yeah, I think keeping it to 4 is the right choice.
Okay. So the first part of emotional intelligence is the ability to have self-awareness. Okay. And I'm going to go a little farther and say emotional self-awareness. So being able to notice what's in your head, what's in your heart, your gut instinct, and being able to label what your emotions are. So that pause. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 is then being able to manage those emotions, right? So having impulse control, like maybe when you're angry or when you're hangry, all right? Being able to recognize, oh, I'm tired. I maybe need to take a nap. I can't think straight. Or I'm stressed. I'm not going to be a good decision maker when I'm stressed, right? So number 1 is notice. Number 2 is manage.
Yeah.
Self. Okay. Now let's go to 3 and 4. All right. Number 3 is awareness that emotions are between us, and I can pick up on what you're feeling if I pay attention. All right. I can feel the mood in the room. Like you're a leader and you have a team, feeling the mood in the room, right? Okay. And having awareness that your team members or your peers are maybe struggling or happy or joyful, and then being able to lead in that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the 4th component is then really being in action to manage those relationships, to manage change, to manage conflict, all with the awareness of self and others. So it's very complex. It's a pretty deep skill set, but it's really needed and really cool. All right, so first of all, you have a mind. Okay.
I hope so.
You have a mind, a beautiful, lovely mind, right? Okay. So your mind is the whole system of your body and your brain. It's not separate. Okay. Our head doesn't walk around separate from our body. We have a whole system that's controlled by our mind. Okay. In your brain, all right, you have neuroplasticity, which is an amazing, amazing thing. Your brain will build new neurons until you pass. So there's really no excuse. You can learn forever if you put your mind to it, okay? So neuroplasticity is where your attention goes, neurons fire, and neural pathways grow, okay? So very important thing to know because you can learn skills, okay? So that's number 1. In your body, you have a nervous system, a parasympathetic and a sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is your fight, flight, and freeze, and your parasympathetic nervous system is your rest and digest, and they send signals up to your brain and back down and up and down, okay? Those signals go to your emotional center of your brain, your limbic system. But the big deal about the limbic system is something called your amygdala, okay? And your amygdala is responsible for saying, no, yes, move away, move towards.
The coach.
It's not the coach. It's the emotional center. It labels and categorizes and makes memories. Okay, so it's It's your feeling center, your emotion center. But it doesn't work by itself, okay? It sends signals to something, most importantly, called your prefrontal cortex, which is right here. It's a tiny little prefrontal cortex. And there's something called the open loop between your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex. You could think of your prefrontal cortex as the conductor of your band. And have you ever felt foggy, like maybe your band was playing kind of slow?
Mm-hmm.
That was probably your prefrontal cortex. Or have you ever felt stressed, where your band is playing really fast?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa! Right? Okay. So what's happening in your prefrontal cortex is it uses two key neurotransmitters. One that's called dopamine, which is our motivator and makes us feel good. And the other that's called norepinephrine, which is like a good activator. All right. Now, when we're in stress, our prefrontal cortex, also known as the Goldilocks, if you remember the story of the Goldilocks.
I remember it well.
Okay, it gets out of just right under stress. And norepinephrine and dopamine actually increase when you're under stress. Okay, so it's no longer happy.
Yeah.
It's out of balance. Okay. So when you're bored, your norepinephrine and your dopamine lower, and you can't think. Okay, so your prefrontal cortex is responsible for your band, or we could also say your executive functions, working memory, decision making, black and white thinking, impulse control. This cognitive guy, your band is your conductor, is working with your amygdala to send signals back and forth. Okay. So stress response and boredom deregulate your emotions through neurochemical change. So we have these different pieces of our body that tell us, I'm stressed, I'm bored, I can get emotionally regulated or not.
It's something that's happening through those signals, that complicated pathway with important jobs.
Right? So emotional intelligence, remember, if we can look at self and recognize that our band is playing loud, or our band is playing slow, or that our fight, flight, and freeze nervous system is kicking our heart rate up, we can start by managing self and regulating our emotions, which clears our prefrontal cortex because it gets even. And then we can make better decisions, which answers the question, why do really cognitively smart people make bad decisions? Because they're not regulated.
They're not regulated. They don't know that they're not.
That's right. They don't know that they're not regulated. So the neuroscience is very important to emotional intelligence.
Yeah.